Why the lads and lasses? Hoo-hoo! Paulie here with my little sidekick. So, a classic, a absolute classic, a role-playing gamer's delight today. Yay! And it's good old Dungeon. So this is the 2012 version that was put out by Wizards. This was a classic. Now, I used to play this at high school, and I assure you I'm old. We would play this if the umpire couldn't turn up for our role-playing game sessions. Hell, play this. But this is a classic game, and one reason I think it's worth revisiting is that it can be basically house rule modifiable. I'd love to see them revamp this and bring in some kind of new rules and do things. They're never going to, but... So anyway, this is a great game for kids. You can see the general setup. It is a board, but what we have in this is we have bunches of cards. They're quite itty bitty teeny mini cards. They're cute, but what the hell. It does come with dice. The rules are basically one giant sheet. Mostly, as you can see, kind of illustrated examples. So it's very easy to play, and that's the strength of it. It is there to be a good fun game for people to play, not to argue over the rules thereof. But the board. So the board is a dungeon. Good stiff board, and you can see the colour codes are levels of the dungeon. You start in the middle here, and each of these is a different level of the dungeon. And as we all know, dungeons become more dangerous the higher the level, and that is advertised, so you can't accidentally wander into anywhere that's too tough for you. So what you do is you choose to play a character type, and they have two cards and two counters for each type of character, one male and one female. So they've got a male and female thief, they've got male and female fighters, male and female wizards, male and female clerics. So if you had multiple players and multiple people wanted to be wizards or what have you, you can do it. You know, one's got to be a boy, one's got to be a girl, but what the hell. So, open out the board, everyone chooses what sort of character they want to be. Now, if you're a wizard character, the wizard rolls a d6, adds 6 to it, and that's the number of spells that they get. The spells are cards. There are fireballs, lightning bolts, and teleport spells. The fireballs and lightning bolts are attack spells for attacking monsters. Some things are more or less vulnerable to different sorts. The teleport spell allows them to pick themselves up and put themselves in any kind of adjacent area in the board. So they're a great get out of jail free card, or they are a great way of skipping past something that someone else has awakened and that's too tough for you to handle, or a way of getting ahead of someone if you're all running from one particular treasure score. But they're a finite resource. You can get the spells back if you go to the center of the map. If you just stay there and essentially forego your turn, you get an extra spell. So it's a very slow process to get them back. Be careful how you use them. So, during your turn, your character can move up to like 5 spaces. The spaces are all very clearly marked. There are doors on the map. You can pass through the doors, but some of them are secret doors. If you end up next to a secret door, you can try and find the secret door. If you then roll a d6, it's a 5 or 6 to find a secret door. Unless you were a thief, in which case 3, 4, 5 or 6 will find it. If you find it, you just move. You can move through it. It doesn't cost you any movement to do it. If you don't find it, you cannot go through that door this turn. And you can only search for a door once per turn. So you're going to have to wait till next turn to go through that way. So that is a tiny advantage that the rogues have over other people. Now, if you enter into a room that has not been cleared, there will be something in there. You turn over a encounter card, and these are color coded depending on what level you're in. So there are encounter cards for level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And obviously they get nastier the higher the level. But you turn these things over, it will have, say, a monster in there. Now, these monsters are each rated for how difficult they are for each class to defeat them. And this will give you a number. You have to roll that number or higher on 2 6-sided dice to succeed. If you roll and get that number or higher, you have beaten the monster. You can then draw a treasure from a treasure card for what is in the room. However, if you don't make the roll, then you roll for the consequences. And you roll on a chart, and the monster could seriously injure you, could lightly injure you, could just chase you off. But if you get lightly injured, you recoil out of the room and you basically you drop an item. If you get seriously wounded, you have to drop randomly half of the item cards that you've got right there on the spot, and then you are sent back to the center of the dungeon, to the initial starting point. You've gone there to lick your wounds, but your treasure is lying there for anyone else to just wander around and pick up where you dropped it. Which is where that teleport spell would really come in handy, I think. Ha! Bing! If you do get rid of a monster, if it's a room, you put a cleared counter there. That means there's, whatever was in there has died. So next time someone comes through there isn't a monster. So you can clear out the dungeon. There are bigger areas which are called chambers. They need 3 cleared counters on them before there are no more monsters. So for the first 3 times someone goes through there, there is always some kind of thing. Now, some of these aren't monsters, some of them are traps. And again, they all have effects written on the cards and explained in the rules. But a lot of the time they will just make you miss turns. You fall down a pit trap and you've got to get out. You've lost a couple of items down the bottom, or what have you. Or you might go through a slide which basically sends you to a specific area of the dungeon. Sometimes you can get a slide that sends you to a really dangerous one, or sometimes it sends you back to the beginning, etc. The item cards you get. Now, the idea of the initial game is first character to get to exit the dungeon with 10,000 gold pieces or more in loot wins the game. Good. So the stuff that you're getting once you defeat a monster and you flip over a treasure card, there are things there. Now these can be piles of gold or things. They'll be like a silver cup and it'll say this is worth 1,000 gold pieces or 500 gold pieces, what have you. So that's where you're getting your monetary value from. But there's also lots of tools in there. There's armor, there's magic weapons and things like this that give you abilities in the game. The magic weapons allow you to add to the 2 dice roll that you make. There are potions and things that give you a 1-shot bonus for this. There are 1-shot spells. There are lots of magic items that do things. So that's how you build up to the higher levels. You get magical equipment to let you tackle stuff that is tougher. Some of these things you're only allowed to use as certain character classes, etc. So there are wands and things that only magicians can use. There's swords and so on that mages or some of the rogues can't use, or your heavy armor that changes the consequences roll if you lose, but rogues and wizards can't use it. That sort of thing. So that's how you climb up to the high levels. But it does actually tell you that the different character classes, it says this one is best kept in this particular set of levels. Don't go to the tough ones. Whereas other ones will say this guy can probably build up rapidly to allow him to go to these higher areas up here where obviously the treasures are worth more, but those monsters there are normally killers, but he's got stuff that'll make them vulnerable to him. So lightly nuanced, easy to explain, incredibly easy to play, a beautiful little game. There's a hidden kind of layer to this that is not advertised, and this is why I love it. The game is very house rulable. Now, one thing you can do, obviously, and what we did in good old high school, is draw our own levels or draw additional areas. So we could mark some areas and make entirely new dungeon zones, and we drew out our own monster cards. But other things you can do is you can have like additional layers to, say, a dungeon. So what we had as a house rule is if you get a certain amount of gold pieces, say if you get 5,000 gold pieces and exit the board for a turn and come out, your character levels up. And in leveling up, you change the dice you roll. So in not rolling 2d6 anymore, you're rolling like 2d8, and your next level up is 2d10, and your next one's up is 2d12, etc. So you're doing really well. But the monsters on the more advanced boards, they, because we're using the same cards and layouts, but we're going to add to them a level number depending on the difficulty of this additional level we've done. So we're going to pull out a card, and it's going to be the usual hobgoblin card, and it might say a fighter needs a 7+ to beat it. But because this is the second level of our Uber dungeon, we're going to add 2 to that. So you don't need a 7 or higher, you need a 9 or higher. So even the low level monsters, you're going to need swords and these sorts of things, or you're going to need the fact that you've now got, I'm rolling 2d8 instead of 2d6. So we house ruled and kind of really brought the thing to life as a whole campaign. So we could make our own maps that had dangerous areas that you could cross over, teetering bridges that could dump you down into abysses, and so it's a highly modifiable game, which is why it's a shame they haven't actually officially done something like this. You can make something way more campaigny and saying the whole idea is not to get 10,000, it is to get, and as you went through there are different swords and so on. Alright, so somewhere on the third layer of our Uber dungeon there is the paladin sword. Alright, well, the paladin sword, that's what we're trying to get. The first person to find that wins. And you can do rules where you could gang up, so you could have multiple people come together and add a bonus, make a single dice roll to overcome things. So it's infinitely house rulable. It's a very good, simple role-playing game done that way. So it can go beyond a board game. So anyway, look, if you've got kids and so on, this is a great introduction to the whole kind of kick in the door, fight the monsters, steal their treasure sort of game. And as teenagers and so on, it was beautifully entertaining. It didn't take much out of us, but it was shits and giggles, and it was great fun. As adults, it actually is quite a funny game to play as a kind of a break, not just for the nostalgia blast, but just like we're waiting for everyone else to turn up for a session. To hell with it. You can pull out Dungeon, set it up in 5 minutes, and you can sit there playing it until the rest of the crew finally arrives for the damn D&D session, whatever. So it's a great thing to have around. But there is also that thing where you can house rule it and make your own little special board game out of it. And as such, that wouldn't be a bad game to have if you were trying to run stuff for some younger players. Like you had 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids who maybe a role-playing game is a normal role-playing game is going to be a little bit too complex. But this system they can understand. Roll 2 dice to get higher than this number. So you can make those house rules and give them a broader experience and give them a game. So anyway, Dungeon, it's an old classic. I'm really happy to see it back. And it deserves to be in print. It's like a classic, simple dungeon-bashy game. It is the original, in fact, simple dungeon-bashy game. And Snoots and I are very happy to see it. Anywho, look after yourselves. Like I always say, be the best possible ambassadors for the hobby that you can. And hopefully I'll see you around a game table sometime soon. Cheers, everyone. Bye.